Dear students, I am here with a new lecture from the chapter Respiration of the course Plant Physiology 1. In today's lecture, I will continue on the previous topic, that is respiratory substrate. And in this lecture, I will explain proteins as the respiratory substrates. I am Dr. Smina Mahmood, Assistant Professor Botany in the University of Education, Lahore. As our basic topic is the respiration process, and proteins are used as substrate for the process of respiration. So, in this lecture, I will get you introduced with the protein, what is the structure of protein, and I will describe you a bit about the classification and function of protein. And as protein is important and used as a substrate in the process of respiration, so I will tell you how they get converted into the simple form and enter into the respiratory pathways. The molecules which yield amino acids upon hydrolysis are called proteins. These are the organic molecules contain carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Proteins are known as nitrogenous organic biomolecules, and here you can see carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen are basically present, and on the basis of these constituents, it is called organic, and nitrogen is present in all type of proteins, so it is called nitrogenous compound, and these are considered the biomolecules because these all are present in the living organisms. Here we can see few examples like blood serum, that is basically based on the major constituent of blood is also the proteins in the milk, in the eggs. These are from animal origin, and blood is also, and these are the lentils, wheat, and the kidney bean. These are from plant sources. So from here we can see that proteins are present not only in the protein but also in the humans and animals and all type of other living organisms, because they form the structural and structural components of all type of living organisms. Collagen and keratin, these both are the types of proteins which are the main constituents of the skin, hair, nail, and bones in animals and humans. And also in the cell membrane of the plants, proteins are present as the basic components. So from here, we can understand that proteins have the role in the structural development of plants and animals. All the enzymes in the body, they are proteinous in nature, and all the biochemical reaction inside the living organism, either in the plant or in animals and humans, are catalyzed by the enzymes. So they play a crucial role in the catalysis of major metabolic processes inside the living organisms. And as a actin and myosin, they play in the movement of the muscles, which shows the physical appearance, which shows in response to the action of certain proteins how the bodies respond physically to the action of these proteins. Hemoglobin, which is the carrier of oxygen and in the membrane proteins, and it is very important to transport the oxygen in the blood. And insulin and oxytocin, these are important in the sugar metabolism in the body. So basically, as a catalyst, as a structure, movement, and transport, and as a hormones, proteins play very important role in the development of the structure, in the catalysis of enzymatic reactions, in the movement of the body, and in the transport of different molecules from one part to the other part of the body. Amino acid is the monomer of the protein, And as the carbon organic molecule, carbon is the basic component of that makes the backbone of the proteins. Here we can see this carbon which is present in the center. It is called alpha carbon, and it is present in alpha carbon is present in all type of amino acids. And as we know that carbon has 4 electrons in its outermost valence shell, and 4 vacancies are available for next attachment. Among these 4 vacancies, 3 are fulfilled by a specific compounds that on one side hydrogen is attached as a nitrogenous compound, amino group is attached on the other side, and on the third side carboxyl group is attached. Only the fourth side where R group, which is called reactive group, is attached. This is actually, we cannot give a specific name to this because it gives a variation among all type of amino acids, and it is specific to each amino acid. Here in most of the times this carboxylic group and amino group and and R group, these play a important role in the attachment of different amino acid with each other. And by fulfilling these 4 vacancies around the alpha carbon, it appears as a tetrahedral structure in nature. Amino acids shows the property of isomerism. Iso means same, and it means if certain molecules, if they have the same chemical formula, but when we draw its structure, and then they have different structure and structural properties as well. Just like here, we can see if the amino group is attached on the right side, then it is called a D amino acid, and if it is attached on the left side, then it is called L amino acids. And here in the examples of the glyceraldehyde, we can see in both situation all the if we write the chemical formula for glyceraldehyde, then it will be the same. But if we draw the structure, then we can see that hydroxyl group on the glyceraldehyde, it is attached on the left side, so it is called L-glyceraldehyde. And in this hydroxyl group is attached on the right side of the alpha carbon, and that's why due to this right-handedness, it is called D-glyceraldehydes. And same here in the amino acid alanine. If we see the structure around the alpha carbon, the amino group is attached, or if it is attached on the left side, then it is called L-alanine. And when amino group is attached on the alpha carbon on the right side, then it is called as D-alanine. And this factor is common among all type of amino acids, that if any reactive group is present on the right side, then it will be designated as with D, and if it is present on the left side, and then it will be designated as L, but the condition is they show the isomerism. It is very important if they have the same chemical formula, but when we draw the structure, they show the isomerism in the attachment on the left and right side of the alpha carbon. As I told you earlier, that R group determines the, or it gives the specificity to each amino acids. So on the basis of R group, amino acids are divided into 7 groups. One is the aliphatic amino acid, in which R group is any aliphatic compound. And if a hydroxyl group is attached on the R side, then it is called hydroxyl group containing amino acids. If sulfur is attached in place of R group, then it is called sulfur containing amino acids. If some acid is attached, HD compound is attached in place of R group, then these are called HD amino acid. If basic, then basic amino acid. Or if a benzene ring is attached in place of R group, then these are called aromatic amino acids. And if and other amino group is attached, means two amino groups are attached in an with the alpha carbon in an amino acid, then it will be called as amino acids. And here we can see in aliphatic amino acid, the examples are glycine, alanine, leucine, isoleucine, and valine. In hydroxyl group containing amino acids, serine, threonine, and tyrosine. Sulfur containing amino acids contain cysteine and methionine. Acid amino acids and their amides contain aspartic acid, asparagine, glutamic acid, and glutamine. Basic amino acids contain lysine, arginine, histidine. Aromatic amino acids based on phenyl, alanine, tyrosine, and tryptophan, and amino acid group contain proline only. On the basis of polarity of the R group, the amino acids are divided into another type of four classes. These are called non-polar amino acids, polar amino acids, and in polar amino acids, these are further divided into three types, in which one polar amino acid contain positive charge, the other called have negative charge, and one group of polar amino acids have no charge, means they are neutral. If we see the non-polar amino acids, these are hydrophobic in nature, and mostly in place of R group, alkyl group or aromatic groups are attached with these amino acids. And as these are hydrophobic, it means they repel water. They do not like to live with water. So these are mostly present inside the membranes or inside the deep structure of the proteins. And if we see the examples, these are glycine, alanine, leucine, isoleucine, valine, methionine, phenylalanine, and tryptophan. And if we see the polar amino acid, all type of polar amino acid, they are hydrophilic in nature. Hydrophilic means they love water. So mostly where the water is present or in the configuration of proteins, the amino acids which are present on the outer surfaces, these are mostly hydrophilic in nature, and which are embedded inside the protein structure, those are hydrophobic in nature. So mostly inside the proteins, non-polar amino acids are present, and on the above surface which is exposed to the water or liquid material inside the cell, over there polar amino acids are present. Now there is further categorization among the polar amino acids, that is when the polar amino acids have no charge. There is neither positive charge nor negative charge. It means amino group attached with the alpha carbon is equal in quantity to the carboxyl group which is attached on the other side of the amino group. And if it has the positive charge, it means an extra carboxyl group is attached on the R position of the alpha carbon. And as a result it can donate hydrogen, so it has the positive charge. And if we see the negative charge polar amino acids, it means they have an extra amide group in place of R group. So as a result but there is a negative charge on these amino acids. And if we see the examples, then serine, threonine, tyrosine, cysteine, asparagine, and glutamine, they are categorized under the neutral polar amino acids. Lysine, arginine, and histidine, they comes under positive charge polar amino acids, and aspartic acid and glutamic acid, they come under polar amino acid with negative charge on R group. On the basis of nutritional importance of the amino acids, these are further divided into two classes. These are essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. Essential amino acids are those amino acids which a living body cannot synthesize, but they need for their growth and development. And non-essential amino acids are those which living body can synthesize by their own, and they do not need to take from the outer source. And if we see the examples, then arginine, valine, histidine, leucine, isoleucine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, threonine, and tryptophan. They comes under the class of essential amino acids, while glycine, alanine, serine, cysteine, aspartate, asparagine, glutamate, glutamine, tyrosine, and proline, they comes under the heading of non-essential amino acids. Before this, I told you the classification of amino acids based on the R group. Now there is the classification of proteins based on the attachment of the different amino acids with each other. So proteins are generally classified into three types: the simple proteins, and the conjugated proteins, and derived proteins. Simple proteins are those which on hydrolysis produce amino acids only. It means there is no other compound is attached with in these proteins. Only amino acids they get attached with each other, and these are mostly connective tissues, and in hard tissues these are present, and present as a fibrous protein in the body. These are mostly present in the grains and cereals in the crops. These are insoluble in all solvents, especially in water, but they are dissolved in dilute acids. And these are as these are fibrous and present in the connective and hard tissues, so these are resistant to digestion all the time. When in the structure of protein, the other compounds like sulfur, phosphorus, carbohydrates, and other types of sugar, or any other compound other than the amino acid is linked or attached with the amino acid to form the configuration or the final structure of the protein, then those proteins are called conjugated proteins. And the example of these proteins are just like proteins which are present in the DNA or RNA, where they are proteins which are present in the milk, in the bones, and in the eggs. These all are the example of conjugated proteins. And in plants, in the plasma membrane, the proteins are present in conjugated proteins form, just like phosphoproteins. In this, phosphorus is attached with the protein, so this is not the purely the amino acids which are linked to each other to form the protein. An extra group phosphorus is attached in its basic structure, so these are called all type of proteins which have extra group. All these are called conjugated proteins. And proteins which are derived from simple and conjugated proteins are called derived proteins. These are mostly the intermediate product of some digestion or metabolic processes which are carried out by some enzymes in the body. For example, proteins, proteases, peptones, and peptides. Proteins have the four levels of structural organization, and these are primary structure, secondary structure, tertiary structure, and quaternary structure. In the primary structure, simply amino acids linked in a linear chain through peptide bonds. And when this basic linear chain, it is get coiled into a zigzag or spiral manner, and other types of bondings are involved, just like hydrogen bonding is involved in this coiling, then it is called secondary structure. And when these zigzag folded or spiral folding secondary structure, they further twisted or folded themselves, then and extra van der Waals forces, hydrogen bonding, van der Waals forces, and many other types of bonding are involved. Then the structure which is obtained, it is called tertiary structure. And when different units of the proteins at the tertiary level they get combined with each other, then it is the called quaternary structure. Means tertiary structure is the final version of the initial linear chain which is obtained for one polypeptide, and quaternary is actually the combination of different tertiary structure which get combined with each other to form different specific types of proteins. For example, in hemoglobin, four tertiary structures are attached with each other to form one hemoglobin molecule. Here you can see the structure of protein clearly. This is the primary structure, and as you can see, these are proline, tryptophan, histidine, leucine, cysteine. These all are the amino acids which are differentiated with color circles, and the different colors are used with all of these. When these are attached through peptide bond in a linear manner, then it is called primary structure. And when this linear chain get processed for the next stage, and this linear get twisted just like a spiral or just like these shears, then it is called as beta structure. This is just the modification of the first primary structure which is made in the first step. And when this secondary structure is further folded into three-dimensional structure, as you can see here, and for these folding, extra forces like hydrogen bonding, van der Waals forces, and other types of forces are involved to have such type of structural organization, then it is called tertiary structure. And this is the final version of this primary structure which we obtain for each type of protein. And when these tertiary structure of different proteins they get attached, like here you are, from the color difference you can see four colors are used, and this each color is representing a different protein subunit. And if these units are attached, different protein units they get attached to form a specific type of protein, then it is called quaternary structure. And you can consider this as the example of hemoglobin, in which four different units they get combined to form one hemoglobin protein. As we learned before that no carbohydrate, protein and lipid can enter into the respiration cycle until or unless they are get metabolized into their simplest forms. And for proteins, just like hemoglobin, they cannot get entered into the respiration process until they get converted into the amino acids. So there basically there are 20 different amino acids, and there are different enzymes in the body that work on these proteins, and basically they do three types of function, that is deamination, amination and transamination, in which ammonia group is removed from the amino acid or protein, or it is added into the protein, or it is transferred from one amino acid to the other. And this is called overall amination, deamination and transamination processes. And all of these reactions, these are catalyzed by different um, enzymes. For example, serine, it is in the presence of serine dehydratase, it is converted into pyruvate, which is the precursor, and it is used in the glycolysis process. Just like this, isoleucine is also after deamination of the action of the enzyme, it is converted into acetyl CoA. And all of these leucine, lysine, phenylalanine, tyrosine and tryptophan, by the action of acetoacetate, they could be converted into the acetyl CoA. And these arrows, these are representing it is a reversible process. Like these amino acid by the action of this enzyme could be converted into this, and in the reverse direction acetyl CoA, if surplus in the body, then it can also get converted by the use of enzyme into the reverse direction, and it can replenish the amino acid status in the cell. Likewise, arginine, proline, and these with the action of glutamate, they could be converted into alpha glutarate. So here we can see there is not a single substrate which is produced. There are multiple substrates which are produced, and they can enter at different stages of the cycle of the respiration, where they can get entered into the process of respiration. Like here, glutamate from alpha ketoglutarate, and this is the part of Krebs cycle. Pyruvate, if it is produced as a serine dehydratase action, then pyruvate is involved in the process of glycolysis, which is also the part of respiration cycle. As we know that respiration cycle has three parts: glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and electron transport chain. So amino acid, by the action of if enzyme, could be converted into different type of substrates which could enter into the process of respiration at different stages. No doubt, proteins are very important, but I told you earlier that protein is not the main source of respiratory substrate. It can only be used under the condition starvation, when there is no carbohydrate and lipids are available in the body. So in the end, you will be able to understand what are proteins, what are their classification, what are their functions, and importance of the protein, and how they get entered into the respiration cycle. I use these two books to prepare this lecture. If you are interested, you can consult these two books as